All right, let's explain what we're doing here today. First and foremost, while you should use code Mista to support the channel, these videos take a ton of work, but I'm going to just remove that for now because it's going to get in the way. I want to talk about the best weapons that you can flux in Fortnite Save the World. I do have a video on the best weapons to voucher, link to that, link down below, you can check it out. I also have a video on the best weapons in Fortnite Save the World. That is a 3-hour-long conglomerate of 10 videos, I think, maybe 11 videos, I don't even know anymore, just talking about all of the best weapons in the game, and pretty much everything we're about to talk about is covered in that video. However, I still get the question on which weapons should I flux, Beast? What should I do? And I figured, well, there are quite a number of event weapons that actually don't need vouchers, and there are a lot of base game weapons that are surprisingly strong. So let's get into my picks and recommendations. This is not a tier list. I have a very informed opinion on this game. I usually come from a standard of math, not really my opinion. So when I give recommendations, they're usually based on math. For example, the Terminator, I ran this through our calculator just the other day, and it is horrible. It's actually one of the worst weapons in the game. It ranked lower than just about every AR I've ever actually tested on the calculator. So for example, the Terminator is a weapon, if you get a copy early on, you can use it, but never perk that thing. I would never recommend it. One weapon I can recommend is the Siegebreaker. Now, as you're watching this, my top 10 ARs might come out. I actually put the Siegebreaker number 10 on the list, and that is including event weapons and everything. The Scourge is on that list, and I still ranked the Siegebreaker very high. You can get this weapon, as with every base game weapon here, you can get it on the field as regular mission alerts. You can get it from a legendary cache. You can get it from llamas, and it will serve you well all the way up until about the 132 power level zones. Once you finally get to the end game, the 140 power levels, the 160s, it's really not a top pick anymore, but it will do just fine. And that goes for the Razor Blade as well. You might have never thought twice about this weapon. It's a triple burst weapon. You might have just assumed it's bad. It's really not. It's actually quite good. I will be linking all of these videos I mentioned down below, or I'll try to, but the Razor Blade, surprisingly good pick, actually. I'm not going to lie to you. As for the rest of the ARs, you know, good and bad, usually not too great. The Hammer Crush, I'm pretty sure can have like the 5 hits in a row, cause explosion, and that can be kind of fun, but it doesn't really save the weapon. Shotguns, you're going to be surprised to hear some of the base game weapons are actually some of the best shotguns in the game. So Tiger Jaw and Room Sweeper are such a great combo because the Tiger Jaw is a slower firing, heavy hitting shotgun, well, heavier hitting shotgun, and the Room Sweeper is kind of the exact opposite. It's a high fire rate, lower damage. The Room Sweeper, if you factor for the time spent reloading, take the base damage of this compared to every other shotgun, divided by the time spent reloading, is the highest DPS shotgun in the game. That doesn't really equate to real world necessarily, but it is a very, very good shotgun. Both of these are. I have them each maxed. I use them in the 160 zones. They are great. And that actually goes for a couple of other weapons here. So first and foremost is the Bear. Not a top tier shotgun necessarily, but it hits really, really hard with a slow fire rate. And again, you'll be surprised to actually find out this is a fairly usable shotgun, and it might be worth a shot. I don't recommend fluxing this, but if you find it on the map and it's a reward, it could be worth a try. And the only other couple of shotguns I'm going to mention here actually is the Maverick. I said 2 more. I'm going to mention 3 because I missed the Maverick. Maverick is a really, really fun shotgun because it shoots in a cone. It shoots through big targets of enemies. It's great for crowd clearing. It goes through the purple shielder husks, which is really, really important. Again, while I wouldn't recommend fluxing this weapon, it's really good as a mission reward and very, very common. A weapon that you might not want to flux is the Stampede, and that is because it is actually it's tied for the highest damage output shotguns in the game. Super, super hard hitting, very hard hitting. I use it against mini bosses and the highest level missions. It has a really, really good reload speed, high mag size. It's a perfect shotgun in all situations. The reason I don't recommend the Stampede is we will get to the expansion weapons later. I'm just going to skip ahead to mention Scavenger Weapons. The Huskbuster exists, and that is why you don't want the Stampede. The Huskbuster is a perfect clone of the Stampede in every way. I think its impact is slightly lower, but it will never matter, and the cost is just cheaper. It's literally the Stampede, but cheaper to craft. That is it, you guys. Phenomenal weapon. I use the Huskbuster in the endgame, not the Stampede. For that reason, it's simply just cheaper. And as for every Scavenger weapon, there are quite a few contenders here. First and foremost, the Scavenger launcher is the exact same as the bazooka. Really, really good rocket launcher. This one could be worth some flux. That's up to you. It wouldn't be my top pick, but it is actually quite strong. And I would recommend the Riptide. However, okay, so the Riptide is a scavenger version of the Thrasher. The Thrasher is, in my opinion, the best SMG in the entire game. Its damage it just trumps them all on a base level, meaning 6 perks and certain configurations can put other SMGs ahead of it, but on a basic apples-to-apples level, the Thrasher is the highest DPS SMG. And the Riptide is the scavenger version. However, its base damage is 1 point lower, so it's like 3% weaker than the Thrasher. I'm not sure why. It's the only scavenger weapon that doesn't match its counterpart, but it is still a phenomenal pick. I wouldn't recommend fluxing it, but it is very, very strong. Now, that does just about cover it for the scavenger weapons, so going back up to the base game weapons, let's get through the pistols. Unfortunately, pistols are pretty casual. There are no base game pistols I'd seriously recommend using. I have actually used the Haywire Storm to some success. However, it is certainly not worth any flux. SMGs, on the other hand, you heard my praise, the Thrasher, seriously. If you're new to the game, this does come as mission alerts very often, just like every other base game we've been talking about, but it might be worth some flux. It's actually very, very good. I use this in the highest level missions. It really never goes out of style and will always do you well. It's kind of insane that a base game weapon can be that strong. As of the Monsoon, on the other hand, it's fun, but it has some spin-up time, really, really high damage output. It makes up for it, but it's not the smoothest to use, and partner next to the Thrasher here, I can't recommend flux on that. And then the Typewriter is actually the only base game weapon listed in the base game section that you can't flux. It's not worth a voucher. It's pretty mediocre, but yeah, we're going to have to move on there because you can't use any flux on that. Snipers, none of these are worth any flux. Some of them are kind of good later on, but they have their own specific videos. I'm not going to get into it. It's just not worth it. And explosive weapons. So the Thumper is quite strong. It's very, very good in game. I'm going to link a rocket loadout video down below that would make it phenomenal. Could be worth some flux. Very rare to see a legendary version of this on the map. I cover the missions every single day on my channel, and in 400 videos, I've seen it like 4 times, I think. It's very, very rare as a legendary copy. Same with the bazooka. You almost never see it. So this could be worth some flux, but as I said, the trash cannon is the same as the bazooka, but it's cheaper to craft. So it's just kind of the superior pick in every way. But if you want that classic look of a nice RPG from like an old Call of Duty game, that could definitely be the way to go. Moving on to melee weapons. Some of these are going to surprise you, and the Stop Axe is, of course, the best weapon in the entire game, but I want to talk about weapons that are really just made more for mortals, and one of those would be the Forceful Slugger. Not on its own is it anything special, but with the Crit Explosion 6 perk, if you flux it, you might not get it. It could be kind of a gamble. It is really, really fun with that crit hits cause an explosion. There are a couple of ones like that, like the Husk Stomper here as well, can have crit hits cause an explosion, and that makes it very, very viable, but without that, it's not super useful. So I wouldn't recommend fluxing it. It would be gambling, but if you want to spend some purple flux, maybe, could be worth it. Could be worth it. And the rest of these are pretty mediocre. The only exception being, well, the Farmer's Glory. Again, crit explosion saves it, but the Stabsworth, this is a weapon that is just incredible. Double attack speed on this thing paired with Paleo Luna makes it a very, very high damage output loadout, and it is extremely useful for that reason, and for that reason alone. On its own, it's not the best sword in the game. It's not bad by any means, but it's not anything worth flux unless you're running double attack speed on it, in which case it is a powerhouse. And finally, just for completeness sake, Stormblade is the only sword in the game that has the crit explosions, and it's a very, very good pick for that reason. I use this in the highest end level missions. It could be worth some flux if you want to go for that 6 perk. As for traps, I'm kind of going to gloss over these. There are some really, really good traps in the game. Most are viable, but all of them are available through regular llamas, caches, mission alerts, everything I've said so far, so I can't recommend any flux on any trap. Broadsides are kind of uncommon, and Sealing Electric Fields are what I use in almost every mission, so if you just really wanted to get ahead and flux some traps, you could grab a Sealing Electric Field and Broadside, but these are so regularly accessible that I would recommend saving your flux. You do only get 50 a week after all. All right, just going down the list here, let's get into some of the event weapons that need flux. This is probably the meat and potatoes of the video and what a lot of you have probably been waiting for. Art Deco weapons just straight up have my endorsement. I'm going to list the best ones right here based on my experience and math. The Floor Flusher comes out as one of the hardest hitting ARs in the game. If you can match up the 6 perk, it's insane. The Big Shot, one of the best shotguns in the game as well. Sodbuster can hit extremely hard. The Killjoy, one of the better swords in the entire game. Every other Art Deco weapon, while not an insanely top tier weapon, all of these are still quite good. The Takedown Sniper even impressed me, which is rare because snipers are usually bad. All of these can be researched without using a voucher, and it's a very, very good deal. Even the Sodbuster, usually the launchers are voucher only, but no. All the Art Deco weapons are available. And it's funny that these are available through Flux, because sometimes, on days like today, we get Art Deco llamas. And I don't recommend spending V-Bucks on these, because again, they're researchable. So, oh no, that closed all my tabs. Well, either way, some of these are extremely good weapons, and I do recommend fluxing them. I personally spent about 1,800 flux on the Killjoy. just trying to get one of each 6 perk, where one of each element would be utilized. And that isn't something I'd recommend for somebody on a budget, but if you're looking to blow some Flux, that is definitely a place that you can put it. Now, if I skip any weapons here that are fluxible, it's either because they're bad or because I missed them. There are some weapons that are randomly accessible, like the cleaner. You cannot, let me just demonstrate, you cannot flux any one of the other spy weapons. You go through all of them and you're going to need to use a voucher. But the cleaner, you can, I don't know. The cleaner is a really, really bad sniper. It's only kind of usable with Chaos Agent, and even then it's not that good. So I don't really recommend fluxing that, but you can. So some of these might change in the future, and I'll try to pin a comment if anything relevant happens. But I do want to point out in the holiday section, the Popshot of all weapons, extremely good shotgun, and you can use Flux on it. This would be worth a Flux because it's not a base game weapon. You're not going to see it on the map. It's only accessible in the Winter Llamas, so this is something you could definitely save a lot of time on and grab. I am recording this in mid-November though, so if you are watching this video at the time of release or shortly thereafter, we're probably going to be seeing Winter Llamas in like a week, so I wouldn't recommend fluxing this as I'm recording, but if you're somebody who's watching this shortly after the winter season and you're looking for the Popshot, it could be a very, very good pick. Now, the black metal weapons are kind of weird. You can't flux any of the weapons. You got to use a voucher on every single one of them, but you can randomly flux the blue version of the Blackout AR and the Black Drum Shotgun. Both of these are extremely good weapons in my opinion. I say my opinion because they are kind of weird. They do take your health away. They do have the new 6 perk for doing extra damage to nature enemies, so I do recommend running these as fire. And the Blackout AR is fairly inaccurate. I don't use it that often because of that, but it is fairly hard hitting and pretty fun to use in my opinion. So you could flux these, but you would have to do the blue version, thus spending blue flux to get it, purple flux to get it to purple, and then gold flux to actually really use it. And it's a pretty heavy investment for such a fun, just mediocre weapon. So while I can't seriously suggest it, it is kind of a thing you can do. And the Black Drum Shotgun, at least, is a lot better than the AR. So yeah, that honestly wraps it up for all the event weapons, unfortunately. But we are not done. In the expansion section, we have the mythic weapons, which you can't flux or research or anything. Sorry. The vacuum tube weapons. All of these are, as with the base game weapons, readily available on the map at all times, but the couple that I'm going to point out are the SMG. The lightning pistol, as it's no longer a pistol, is insanely strong. It is one of those specific weapons where nature versus water, it can outdamage the Thrasher. It does take energy cells, so it's a little expensive, but it is a very, very good pick. Vacuum tube bow, one of the strongest bows in the entire game, is unfortunately voucher only. That alongside the Xenon bow makes me kind of upset because you can voucher nothing in here. You can only flux everything in here, but the bows are voucher only. So if in the future you can flux the Xenon bow, top pick. Vacuum tube bow, second pick. Really good weapons, but you have to voucher them for some reason. Vacuum tube sword, on the other hand, very, very good sword. And with the chain lightning that comes with every single one of these weapons, all of them are very, very fun and could be worth using right away. So yeah, military weapons, some of the best weapons in the entire game. Silent Spectre is just under the Thrasher in highest DPS. It's a percent so small you'll never notice it. It's like a 7.3% damage difference, and the Spectre is phenomenal. I have multiple copies and I still use them regularly. So that is worth flux 100%. Even with the Thrasher existing, Silent Spectre is still very good. Whisper 45, top tier pistol. It is a pistol, so, you know, yeah. Ground Pounder, one of the best shotguns of the game. This is a weapon where it is not as hard hitting as the Huskbuster, but it is faster firing. So you might find this more comfortable on a mission-to-mission basis, and it's a lot more comfortable to use. Really, really good. You're not going to get it in llamas. You're not going to get it in legendary caches. You might get the Huskbuster out in the field, but you do need to flux the Ground Pounder, and I do believe it's worth it. It's a very, very strong shotgun. Bobcat, same deal as the Spectre. It's not as strong specifically, but you can run this without a mag or a reload perk nowadays, put Chaos Agent in support, and you're going to be having a really, really good time. That can shoot for a long time. Super good pairing. A lot of people really like the Wraith. I'm not going to stand behind it. It's not a weapon I've ever been personally impressed by, but I know some of you are fans of it, so Flux it is. And the Obliterator. I recommend at least getting one copy of these, making it energy and giving it to your defenders. I'm going to link my defender video link down below. It's really, 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 really useful for defenders. I use this very often. I have 3 copies, one for each element. If you're on a budget, just grab one Obliterator. Making it energy is going to be perfectly fine, and you're going to be off to the races. I also scrolled past it, but Hacksaw is a weapon very, very good to be paired with Chaos Agent as well, because you can just throw a grenade, instant reload. I've been using it a lot myself in the highest level missions. Really phenomenal weapon. Also worth Flux. I just fluxed it myself recently, and I have no regrets. So really, really good picks. The military weapons are some of the best weapons in the game, and I can't really overstate that. Neon weapons, there's nothing in here that's worth Flux, unfortunately. I'm just going to skip past them. Same with Vindertech. And Hydraulic. Hydraulic has one, well, maybe two standouts in the entire set. One is the Dam Buster. Again, you can get this on the regular map, so maybe not Flux it, but it is really, really good for knocking smashers around. That's very useful in endgame endurance, and I have never used it in a regular mission, but it is something that's very useful. One thing I have used in a regular mission is the Hydra, so I don't actually have one in the book, apparently, because you have to Flux it, but it is really, really good with First Shot Rio. I'm going to let its video down below speak for itself, but it is an option and kind of a fun pick. And Scavenger Weapons, we mentioned at the beginning. Thank you guys so much for watching. These videos take a ton of work, like I said. Feel free to use code Mista if you guys want to help support the channel. Hopefully this helped you guys in spending your legendary Flux. I definitely recommend hoarding it. You know, I mean, there are a lot of really good weapons that don't need Flux. I myself am up to 3,500 at this point, but you do get 50 per week, and if every other week you want something to spend, hopefully this helped you out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day. And then